This is RACEX, a TPP review of race and race relations in America. Not everything is about race, but when race matters to the story, we're going to talk about it honestly, examine the facts, and challenge the narrative.
I wake up in the morning and I thank my God. Many people wish me down, but I still stand strong.
What happens when racial hostility moves beyond ugly words and starts affecting how somebody behaves towards black people, all black people? That's the question I want you to think about while you're watching this video. This happened in Antioch, California. A black woman recorded an interaction with her next door neighbor. And I'm going to let you hear what he says for yourself. And I'm going to stop the video about halfway through because there's something much bigger happening here than somebody simply using an ugly word.
Like all you think you're lawyers, huh?
This video of a man making racist rants in Antioch has gone viral on multiple social media accounts. The man repeatedly uses the N-word and an obscene gesture while confronting a black woman who lives next door to him.
Go ahead, show the judge, because you know what? Ain't illegal.
He tells her his use of the N-word is not a crime. Although Antioch police are investigating, KTVU legal analyst Michael Cardoza says he's right.
Let me stop right there because the first thing that strikes me ain't even the word. I'm 60 years old. I've heard the N-word before. It don't affect me. Black people don't need another seminar explaining that racist people know racial slurs. What interests me is how comfortable he is doing it. He knows she's recording. He can see the phone. He knows this can end up on the internet, at his job, and in front of his family and his friends, in front of anybody who knows this man. And apparently, none of that is enough to make him stop. That comfort bothers me more than the shock value of the word itself. Because racism doesn't suddenly become dangerous the first time somebody says something crazy. What worries me is when people become comfortable enough with racial hostility that they no longer feel any need to hide it. This is Trump's America. There used to be a social consequence attached to this, openly behaving like this. I'm not saying racism disappeared. It absolutely did not disappear. But people understood there were certain things you didn't proudly say in public, unless you were prepared for people to judge you for saying them. Now I wonder whether some of that shame is gone. What's wrong with you people? And before somebody says, well, he's just trying to get a reaction, that doesn't make this any better. Think about what that argument actually means. If you deliberately use somebody's race to humiliate, intimidate, or provoke them because you know it will hurt them, race has become your weapon. Look at the woman recording him. She's not giving him the explosion he seems to want. She's documenting this man like he's an ant. That matters because sometimes the smartest response to somebody trying to desperately provoke you is to let them keep trying. Don't interrupt somebody who's volunteering evidence about their own behavior. But there's something else here that I want you to notice. This is not happening at a rally. This is not two strangers arguing in a parking lot who will never see each other again. This is her neighbor. When this video ends for us, we move on. She still has to live next to him. Keep that in mind while you watch the rest of the video.
Michael Cardoza says he's right.
No matter how profoundly offensive this type of language is, the First Amendment protects it. He's not going to get arrested for what he did.
But I learned the man, 33-year-old Adrian Joseph Ramirez, was arrested and charged with battery and a hate crime for allegedly using the N-word and pushing a black man passing by his home 3 days after the July 23rd run-in with the woman next door.
You see, his goofiness got him in trouble even further. He's even more serious for no reason. That's crazy. The lady obtained a restraining order and he got arrested for doing something else 3 days later. So we're not simply talking about whether somebody's feelings were hurt by an offensive word. We're talking about whether racial hostility can make somebody feel unsafe in their own home and push them to the limits where they would be arrested. See, her home is supposed to be the one place where she don't have to negotiate her rights to exist. Imagine wondering whether you're going to encounter this when you walk outside. Take your garbage outside, get your mail, pull into your driveway. You got to deal with this man every day. And this is where we need to make an important distinction, right? Being racist is not itself a crime. Of course, the man said that. He just said that. Having racist thoughts aren't a crime. Saying something racist as disgusting as it may be, can still be constitutionally protected speech, which he said it was. But behavior is different. Threatening somebody is different. Pushing somebody on the sidewalk like he did 2 or 3 days later is not protected. That's assault. Threatening somebody is assault. Assaulting somebody is different from anything other than talk. Harassing somebody can raise different legal questions, and he's going to face some. Hate crime. And when criminal conduct is motivated by racial bias, that's where hate crime laws can potentially come into the picture. That's why Chud, the retired builder's in trouble. He let his racial hatred put him in prison, potentially. That's especially important here because prosecutors reportedly charged this man with battery and a hate crime enhancement involving a separate encounter, that separate encounter in which he pushed another person. Now I'm going to be responsible about that. A charge is not a conviction, okay? I'm not sitting here declaring him guilty or something that still has to be determined, but I absolutely think we're allowed to ask a question. If somebody openly expresses this level of racial hostility towards a black neighbor, and days later authorities accuse the same person of committing a racially motivated battery against a black person, should we be paying attention to the relationship between the words and the alleged behavior? I think we should. And that is why I started this episode by asking what happens when racial hostility moves beyond ugly words and starts affecting how somebody behaves towards black people. The N-word is almost the easiest part of this conversation. We know what the word means. The harder question is what somebody who thinks this way does with those words. Do those beliefs affect who they consider suspicious? Do they affect who they think belongs in their neighborhood? Do they affect who they believe deserves respect? Do they affect how quickly they become aggressive with somebody? That's where racial bias stops being merely an opinion inside somebody's head and starts affecting another person's life. And I don't want RACEX to become a show where we find somebody saying something racist on camera and spend 8 minutes announcing that's racist. We can all hear. The useful conversation is what the behavior tells us. There's another part of the story I want to address because apparently somebody later threw an explosive device or firework at this man's home. I don't support that. And not because I suddenly feel obligated to protect this idiot. I don't want to support it because retaliatory violence doesn't solve racial hatred. It creates another victim, another crime, and another opportunity for the original issue to get lost. There are other people living in that neighborhood. There are homes on either side. You don't get to endanger everybody because somebody behaved like a racist fool on the internet. Let the video expose him. Let the woman use the courts to protect her. Let prosecutors prove whatever criminal offenses they have evidence to prove. But don't turn racial accountability into revenge. Because if RACEX is going to criticize somebody else's behavior, we have to be consistent enough to criticize bad behavior from people supposedly acting on our side too. And here's why I land on this. I don't need to know everything inside this man's head. I don't need to diagnose him. I don't need to spend 20 minutes deciding what the hell is on his mind. I can evaluate what I actually saw. I saw racial hostility being expressed openly towards a black woman who lives next door to him. I know she subsequently told reporters she was afraid enough to seek a restraining order, and I know there's now a separate criminal investigation against him. Those facts are enough for me to take the behavior seriously. Because racism don't become important only when somebody commits a crime. Sometimes the warning signs come before that. They're words, intimidation, and sometimes somebody is kind enough to stand directly in front of a camera and show you exactly what you're dealing with. And that's what she did. Did this man say something racist? We already know he did. The question is what happens when racial hostility begins influencing your behavior. That's when ugly words can become somebody else's real world problem. Y'all goofy out here.
Yeah. Oh, no. Big energy. No darling. DJ, turn it up. I wake up in the morning and I thank my God. Many people wish me down, but I still stand strong.